IVM.
Hey everyone, welcome to yet another episode of Techlife at Intuit. And I have with me today a few more guests from Intuit, of course. Welcome to the show, Gayathri and Shiva. How's it going? How are you guys doing?
Great, Shiladitya. Thanks, and really nice. And thanks for the opportunity, and looking forward to an engaging conversation with you.
Great. It's great to meet you both here. And thankfully, we're all, of course, doing this from home at our respective places. But in my previous conversations about how the life has been at Intuit for the rest of your colleagues, I do know you all miss the office and the vibrant workspace that it is. And I'm sure you guys are also itching to go back in some sense.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I think we sort of underestimate, and I think someone said that you underestimate how much a building adds to the culture.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is something we miss, right, terribly. It's how much you try over Zoom. I don't think you can create that cohesiveness of shared purpose. I think that comes from being in an office. As much as we didn't think it was, that is true.
Yeah.
And also on a candid note, we missed the chai point conversations that we used to have at office.
Oh yes. No, I think the office snacks and tea can't be replaced with whatever version of it you have at home, right? I think that's there's a special flavor to just that whole thing.
Absolutely.
But don't trust me, we all are waiting for everything to sort of move on and move back. But in spite of that, I think the admirable part, obviously, is that I'm talking about this for in previous episodes as well. That you guys as Intuit as a company, you're still obviously doing great in terms of the enablement of your team, the happiness factor that everyone shares, and of course, it shows in the fact that you guys are yet another year ranked in the top list of the greatest places to work. So kudos to that. I think it's a big milestone that everyone is still able to sort of feel the vibe of what it is to work in the same company in spite of being from home.
No, absolutely. I think the thoughtfulness that Intuit has displayed, you can check with my family. I think they love Intuit more than I do because of how much it takes care of not just the employees, but reach out to think about the whole family, its experience, especially given the fact that adjusting to creating that workspace. First of all, acknowledging that not everybody is set with their workspace environment. Be it as simple as I need a chair and a table. You start from that, and then creating that seamless onboarding, creating virtual onboardings. And also through the COVID wave 2, the massive support within this leadership community, extending to our broader colleagues, vaccination drives or care packages. I think Intuit definitely it has earned that right to be that great place to work because of that constant people first commitment. I don't know, Shiva, does that resonate with you also?
Absolutely. The amount of care and the love Intuit has shown on all the employees, it's pretty evident. It was not easy time, honestly, but together we have done a really good job.
Yeah.
That's amazing. And I actually want to dig into, a few of those things specifically, right? Gayathri, maybe to you first. I mean, you're a product leader in a company which obviously has thrived on great product leadership, global sort of thought leadership in terms of the directives that you have in how you look at building products, right? Or building great products for your customers. You have, I know there's a built-in theme for saying that you design for delight. And there's, so much around just obsessing around what you can do for your customers. What is it as a leader that you feel most, I would say, empowered with, and that helps you do your job better? Could you give us a little bit of a perspective on that?
Yeah, absolutely. You called it right. I think in the heart of Intuit is that whole customer obsession angle, which is that the fabric of worrying about the purpose of why we are here is sort of weaved in very finely within the overall organization. That's the culture. And that's true for every individual at all levels. And specifically, if you ask for a leader, that foundation of a common DNA with respect to caring about our customers gives a great sense of purpose. And I think we are able to inspire our teams to begin with that purpose. And it's a noble cause, right? Our mission is noble, that it says it's powering prosperity. And therefore, and it's helping others do their job better and giving them more time to run their business, be it a small business person or putting hands in the money of a taxpayer in case of TurboTax. So that purpose itself becomes noble. It's honestly very easy to inspire. It becomes easier to inspire someone to join your team, and also somebody to, be it hiring or retention, there's an automatic connection to that mission. More than that,
Yeah.
I think Intuit, there is this empowerment with respect to autonomy and ownership. With there's like Intuit India, for example, and in the context of the ecosystem of Intuit India, I'm a PD leader for identity solutions that power all of Intuit. And what we own and drive from my team are essentially owned and driven by me. And therefore, while we're all accountable for our customers, our stakeholders, there is, in terms of being able to autonomously make decisions, to move fast, and to serve the same purpose of delighting our customers as the backdrop, makes it very powerful for a leader to be invested in the journey, because then that's the growth for the leader, for the organization, as well as the people that are as part of it. So I think from an empowerment for a leader, it is the ability to establish a Uber North Star goal as a purpose, and the autonomy to be able to take decisions and be able to have the teams move with speed at all levels is essentially is what is delightful. I think that's my take.
Interesting. Shiva, if I can move to you, given this sort of autonomy which Gayatri just spoke about, how does that translate into, let's say, your sort of decision-making framework as an engineer, right? What do you feel is the best part of having that autonomy translated to even your parts of job?
I think what it enables engineers is to be bold, right? Because you are always free to experiment, make the difficult choices, and that hey, there are folks who will back you, and we're gonna do a rapid prototyping and figure out the hypothesis, is it good or bad? We're gonna figure it out soon. So that kind of framework, along with, like you said, the customer-driven innovation and the design for delight, enables us to move faster and have a high say-do ratio, right? So that really allows the engineers to have a exercise speed as an habit, if I can say so.
Okay. And how has this sort of played out in the course of all the products that you guys have built? Of course, Intuit is well known for so many iconic brands and products. Like you said, Gayatri, you are at the heart of it. There is actual benefits that you are able to translate for the customers who use them. What are some of those sort of successful moments which have stemmed from the fact that you could experiment, try something out, and you were able to sort of see that your experiments bore fruit because of an actual rollout? If there's anything you can share.
Yeah, I think we can talk about one of the tech. I would say it was a disruption because we sort of took something, almost broke it, and then built it back up. With Shiva, and I have the shared journey on that. That would probably be an interesting example to take as we talk through this one. So one of the examples of what Shiva called was being bold and having a hypothesis, and then either you fail fast, but at the same time you're essentially, and either you succeed or you learn, right? There's no such thing as failure.
Yeah.
And they took that. We essentially took one of our front door orchestrations, which essentially powers our revenue, because it's essentially the sign up for our small business units. All our small business customers, QuickBooks customers, actually come through that front door to sign up. So if you go to QuickBooks.com and you say, I want to sign up for the product, you essentially hit the service. So from a risk it was a very high risk and therefore a high reward. But our hypothesis was it was an old system and it was a tech innovation. But our hypothesis was we could make it faster. We could just make it, blow it out in terms of make it 200% faster. And I think that the trust on that to be earned, I think that was a journey of the disruption itself. And the whole overall process took us time to get there. But it's looking back, it's also feels like it was an empowerment of the empowerment was there because it would have easily been the safe route would have been don't touch that because it's the front door and don't touch it because it actually could affect. And so not doing anything would have, probably set us back because we'd have still been slow. But doing it at that time, the risk was high. But I think the senior leaders blessed it and we were able to go and do it. I think that's one of those where we could transform the front door experience to with we went from 10 plus or 14 kind of seconds to 1 second kind of a breakthrough, which was unbelievable, from unimaginable at that time. But we powered through.
Yeah. That's a tenth. You reduced sign up time by a tenth is massive, right?
Yeah.
Is that even a goal you had when you went in, or what was it more? What were you actually trying to do? What metric were you trying to hit?
I don't think we went in with that. We started seeing when we started to look at, we started to say this was essentially a velocity play for engineers. And it started as, this is super clunky. If I break this up, I can, start to release this and do releases faster, which was in itself a noble goal because, you don't want to slow innovation because any change that had to happen in this front door path would take time, and it would take at least 2 to 3 weeks of coordinated releases. And we want to break it to hours, like anytime I want to release it, I want to go and make a release. I think that autonomy of being able to do it independently was the motivation. And what we quickly learned, and it took a village for us. We were just not the two of us, right? There's a massive village who's not talking to you. And we're probably, I would say I was not the smartest person in the room either. That there was a lot of other inputs that added to it to say, hey, that's fantastic. But how about, again, here the developer as a customer is the angle. But how about we actually add a customer angle to it and make this customer backed? Because that's when it hit us that, there's an immense opportunity to make this faster, not just separate it out and make it independent, but make it faster. So that's the provocation that led to the transformation, which resulted in something much bigger than we originally dreamed of.
Wow, that's amazing. So it's not just from a tech angle that you solved it as you said, okay, this is just future-proofing the underlying technology, but it actually solved a business benefit in
Absolutely.
that to that end, right? Your customers could sign up faster, they could enjoy and find your products faster. Obviously, I'm sure there was.
They could get in faster and they could see the products sooner, and it made adding new products to the ecosystem, like you could expand faster. So it sort of the goodness started to unpack in front of us when we started opening our minds about what the possibilities of that transformation could be. And what we learned through that is when you have an idea and you take it, I think people add to it. They add to the goodness and say, hey, how about plus, right? It's like an improv thing, like you're like, yes, and so suddenly it becomes so big and it becomes very powerful. And that's, so I think a whole lot of thanks to that culture of being able to, one is, of course, be true to your customers and don't just do something because it's fun. But at the same time, the ecosystem comes along and says, why don't you think about these 4 other things that you could do better? And then you plug the whole thing together. So I think that came definitely from a lot of brainstorming and from people much smarter than the two of us put together.
I'd love to hear even, Siva, from you, that given this was a shared sort of challenge that you worked on, right? from an engineer's perspective, you obviously, again, like you shared before, you have a lot of freedom in how to attack a problem, right? There's so many ways someone could think about solving, let's say, a technical challenge. And what would you say was, what made this one particular experiment so successful, given the freedom you had to sort of approach it in so many ways, and the collaboration you could do with all the people that Gayatri was just talking about?
I would say that it all started with a brainstorming. We had like a week or 2 weeks of brainstorming. We said that, hey, there has to be a better way of doing this. The sign up is the first interaction, right? A customer has with Intuit as a brand and as a product. There's nothing more than giving a seamless experience at that point. And the current system that we had was not really scaling up to provide that. We're looking at upward of 25 plus seconds, right, for a customer to experience a product, right? And we read about metrics where a delay of 1 second decreases the customer satisfaction by 16%. So there are stats around all of this. So that's where we said there has to be a better way of doing this. And then we looked at this, hey, how do we go about this, right? And then we spent like 2 to 3 weeks of whiteboarding. This was the pre-COVID world. So we had the luxury of, whiteboarding in office, all that stuff. We came with high-level architecture. And to be very honest, I don't think at that point we figured out all that. We didn't have answers to all the questions. Though we had a directional view, we didn't have next click details, right? And that's one of the principles that we also laid out. We said that, hey, let code do the talking, right? Let's debate over code, not over documents. And let's see who can write beautiful code among us. Who can write the best code among us, right? So it was a culmination of all of this, right? And the system that we were in, from a tech point of view, was a monolithic architecture, right? Not to say all the challenges that we have with that. So truly, we moved from a monolithic system, which had like 20 plus dependencies, into a modern era of microservices, reactive architecture, and all the goodness of cloud and stuff, right? So that way, the benefits of this transformation, if you put any actor, you put a developer actor, you put a customer actor, you put business as an actor, right? Ecosystem. There was something for all of them. That's what makes this truly, an amazing transformation.
Brilliant. And in the course of this, right, like you said, you said, I love that line, that the code do the talking. It's something which you actually could tell your team to actually say, start writing code, see how it works, see how far it goes, and then sort of take the next step from there on, instead of planning everything down to the T well ahead of time. Is that something you think is truly has helped you across the board to grow as a team?
Yeah, I think it has done, definitely, because when we started this journey, like I said, after the brainstorming, we took, I think, some 6 weeks, and then we had a working prototype, right? End-to-end stuff working in our local machine, right? When we started, we wouldn't even imagine that we would have this in 6 weeks, right? If you had gone the path of documenting every click details, at the end of 6 weeks, you would have had a 6-page document. But now we have a end-to-end working solution in front of us. And again, I still remember it was probably 11 a.m. in the night. We were presenting it to Intuit CTO, where we had a working solution end-to-end. And that was truly a proud moment for all of us. What we believed 2 months back was not possible, we had it right in front of us working, right? So it was, in that way, I would say definitely it has helped. The systems that we had in place, the design for delight and, the customer-driven innovation, where, we had the liberty to do rapid experiments, really helped us to move even faster.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And,
I wanted to just add to that part, what you just asked, right? As Shiva called out, our only plan at that point was, my request was like, we have 6 weeks, we'll do a prototype. And when we do the prototype in the meeting, we had no plan. We had no plan beyond that, because we didn't think we would get to that point. Once we got there, and this was a night meeting, and our CTO said, "Oh, this is fantastic. So when are you shipping?" And this was, we just said, "Okay, you know what? Jan 31st." And we didn't know how far away we were from Jan 31st. I don't know, Shiva, was it probably a month or something like that, right?
Yeah.
And there was no agile project plan, no stories at that point, nothing. We just took a, okay, we'll do. And she smiled, I could tell, and she just said, okay. And but we went back, of course, and changed a lot. And we did we said, okay, what is the MVP we can drop at that point and say that's successful and take it live. So it was not about being a date-driven development, like I should drop something on this date. But why that was important was we created the approach that will be incremental because we haven't figured it all, and will be agile, meaning that if we learn something is more important, then we'll switch ourselves and rejig this and go and do it. But the only thing would be we will get this done by this timeline. So we hit the MVP and then we do it in slices. And I think what I had to do was, after it hit a maturity point of MVP plus, like a solid state threshold you cross, at which point it starts to get serious, because you launched in a small cohort, I can let a small amount of traffic through, but then now it gets bigger. And then we get into a planning. And I think that was probably, Shiva, like maybe like 3-4 months down the line, where we were even having that mind space to create that plan, because we weren't sure of all the things that we hadn't fleshed out. So there was what we were happy was that understanding. I was very, very happy with that understanding that there is amorphousness in planning, which is okay, because you may not know everything, but if you have a directional alignment that we've got this, and you will see something, and at this point you will actually start seeing a firmed up plan, that acceptance from the organization was extremely empowering. Sorry, I just wanted to add that part to it.
No, thank you for that, Gayathri, because I mean, as far as my experience with teams of product managers and teams of engineers go, and I'm sure people listening to this show, there are many who fit into those roles. You typically do know that there is a certain, I would say, style of working across the industry of, product managers being completely the document data driven sort of folks that you are, and trying to outline everything all the way down to the line, and engineers expecting the same, because most people don't want ambiguity when there's code, when they have to put code on paper. So it's amazing that you both were able to do this. And again, I kudos to the sort of culture as well as the freedom which it allows, right? Where you can go back and forth and lean on each other for filling in parts of the problem as you go along.
Oh, yeah.
Instead of saying, I won't touch this until you give me each line. Speaking
true.
on
and I think I think that was also to the fact that they understood the enormity of the problem. I think that empathy came through in their understanding that you may not have figured it out. But of course, we didn't have a very long leash, obviously. Like, you had to go back, because they sort of treated us like a startup with an idea and it's done. But then they said, but the remit to me was that you come back after 3 months, you better have a more cohesive view, like next 12 months, how are you going to expand? Because this is a front door. This is important.
Yes.
And you're not going forward beyond this. So that I totally get. Like, holding us accountable so asking questions is not a problem. Questioning at every step becomes hard. So I think there was the culture of asking questions as opposed to questioning. That's what helped us.
No, that's great. And like I said, it's this sort of collaboration is actually probably what makes everyone feel so empowered within the team, right? And to be able to do that for obviously a product like this, or an aspect of the product which is so critical, literally the front door, shows that not only is the organization supportive of this sort of open collaboration and experimentation, but also that you guys were successful, because the business outcomes and the results clearly show that. I think it only sort of brought forward your you have a theme of making speed a habit, right? So
Right.
that is not just in doing your job, but also the results in the kind of output that you guys created. So amazing to see that. How do you then, I would also ask that this was a big challenge. You found this, you considered it, you obviously stuck your neck out to sort of take this up, and then obviously successfully delivered. How do you pick these battles as a, both as a product manager, as well as, let's say, Shiva, later to you as a engineer? How do you choose which are these battles I want to pick, given my key objectives, or the sort of organizational goals that you might be aligned to?
I think from a I can start first, and Gayatri can pitch in. From an engineer point of view, it was getting hard, really, right? Because there was the difficulty in managing the systems. There was challenges as Intuit grow organically and inorganically. There are a lot of products that we added to our portfolio, but our sign-up capability was not, able to provide that mix and match for our customers. Today, if a customer wants, hey, I want this, to cherry pick and create a custom, offering for them, that was not possible. So really, it was coming from all angles, and that's where we felt like, hey, there's a lot of benefits in this, and the way in which we have to go through it is not from a developer point of view, but really from all the actors' point of view.
Gayatri,
And
I mean, yeah, see, please go ahead.
yeah, I could add to that. So if you're asking overall that how do you pick these, what's the most battles that you want to, how do you come up with these, and how do you go about, if that's the question you're going for?
Yes.
So every year at Intuit, what we do is, for every scope of what we would do, we essentially draw up a vision of, this is our 3 to 1 year, like 1 to 3 year kind of a vision. And we sort of, similar to the Amazon press release kind of an approach, where you say, this is what I want to release as my press release in 3 years from now, which is a little bit pie in the sky, but it's aspirational. And then your 1 year is closer to home because it's like incremental from where you are. And one of the things that all of us collectively do when we're doing our planning is we look at not just your 3 year, 1 year vision, which you helped shape up for working with the product teams and the product development teams, as well as with the tech teams. But you also are able to get a vision of where the organization at different levels, all of them publish this. So you get a vision of where the business is going in the 3 to 1 year. And then also the tech innovations are happening. And this essentially forms the foundation of, okay, we start to look at, if that's where the org wants to go, where can we lean in? Either it's a direct remit based on our vision for the next year, or a requirement, or it is something that you sort of connect the dots and say, if Intuit needs to be the center of financial identity in a few years, then what do I need to do today to create that? Is it improving? For example, now we are double down on looking at developer experience and developer velocity as a first class capability alongside customers. So looking at developer as a customer is a theme. So these
Right.
themes that are evolved within the organization from a guidance give us those pockets of, okay, where do I go and now start to poke around? And you can, some of these inefficiencies tear out, like Shiva called out. Some of the inefficiencies come through, like, oh my goodness, it takes somebody for 8 change to coordinate between 5 people. That's just not lined up with removal of barriers or moving with speed. So we have to fix that. Those are some which stand out. And then there are stuff that we sort of may have to scratch the surface to identify and say, that's not entirely directly asked for, but maybe there's something that we should look at from either an efficiency, velocity, or a customer outcome. So every team within Intuit and that's, I'm extrapolating based on how we operate, is we look at, it's not just a go do of this is what the product team says, let's just go and build it, but then you actually look at, if I have to wear the product hat, and every engineer wears that, the product leader, I wear that, and say, what could we be doing better if we have to delight, and if the organization or the company wants to move in this direction, and that availability of that information, Shiladitya, is a key driver to being able to know which battles to pick, and that transparently shared vision, the clear vision that is transparently shared, is the other aspect. So I think there's a top-down declared aspect of innovation, and then there is a bottom-up innovation that we drive through. We have engineering days where engineers come up with challenges that they want to go into. So there's a bottom-up aspect also to creating innovations and empowering them. Hope that sort of answered.
Yeah. Thanks for that. The background on the project that you just obviously just shared with us, right, Gayathri and Shiva, and of course the amazing business outcome that you could achieve in spite of not sort of going in with a massive plan or written down to the wire on exactly how you'll achieve it. But if not in this context, but in overall, right? How what happens when you do experiments, and a lot of those experiments obviously don't work out the way you imagine them to be, so you have to go back to the drawing board, you have to sort of revise plans, revise timings. There's obviously an impact and a delay, or if nothing else, on the outcomes that you were driving. So how does, I would say, the culture at Intuit support that aspect of sort of redoing your goals or rewriting, fixing your mistakes? If you could share some perspective on that.
Yeah. When I started explaining it, I said we started it and we almost broke it, and we did break it. So there were a couple of instances where, there were a lot of instances, because the transformation is never a personal journey, right? It's everybody's journey, and therefore is there's people who are interested in it because it's something that you would break, that's theirs, and people who are interested in it because they are actually part of creating it. And so there are lots of facets of people who come in and who are engaged. There are two parts when I remember very vividly, and maybe Shiva has as well. There was once where we hit a concurrency, and it's a bane of any distributed system eventing architecture. We hit a concurrency issue, and I think everybody who's listening would nod along that's such a ubiquitous thing that all of us struggle with. And you can hit on it, if you hit on it early on, it's good, but we hit on it after we went live. And it was it was relatively less terrible because it didn't double count or stuff, but we actually sort of there were experiences which were subpar, let me put it that way. And we caught it. I think Shiva and the team, they caught it really quickly. And the first thing we did, because we always had a backup, like that's what we do, right? When you start to break something, have your backup strategy so tight that you can go back to the last known something that works perfectly, because just because you decided to change it to something magnificent, it's not going to happen overnight. So I think that saved us, like the resiliency strategy of coming back to something. And that's the first thing we did. But before we even get to explaining to others, the kind of self-questioning that does to one's own team and one's own conviction, it hits it hard. And you're like, oh my goodness, I should have never, you start with, oh, I should have never started this. Now look where I've got. And that's you sort of have that, self-doubt snowballs within the team. So think we went through a little bit of soul searching very briefly. We snapped out of it very quickly because we said, you know what, come on, this is something we can figure out. But I think at that moment, as a team, when you soul search too deeply, you can go wrong. I think it's always the idea is that was just a glitch. Let's move past it. I think that helps the team's morale as you move forward. From a stakeholder perspective, the resiliency, like you just go back to something. Nope. See, no customers were harmed. So what are you complaining about? So I think you sort of satisfy the business by saying that, you know what, you shouldn't have to worry at all. Yeah, you wrapped on the knuckle. Absolutely. We shouldn't have done that. But now I can move. So the business respects that because they say, okay, you go back to the drawing board and do whatever, but you're not hurting the customers. And that's a very fair game. And that's what we did. And we turned it off. And I think it took us about a month or so to actually get it right again. And that was a long, painful wait for each person in the, because every day that you're not live, you feel like you failed.
Yeah.
And I think that was something that we had to get over. It was more us getting over it as opposed to anybody else asking us, because as long as customers weren't impacted, there was no leaders were really worried about what we were doing, because they understood that this is part of the journey. You will get it wrong and you'll get it right. So that support was helpful, but then the double down focus that be customer back, because that you at any cost, you're not experimenting on the back of our customers. That remit was very strong too. That was one thing which stood out. The other one was, again, explaining tech to business is a bad idea, meaning you have to essentially explain business benefits to business. And so the first time I think we trying to say how powerful the solution was, I think we talked so much about this was especially when we were rolling out globally, yet essentially socialized this with different country managers and so forth. And the simpler thing would have been, oh, you actually have to translate what you're saying in what they can hear and interpret. And that was more of a learning from the perspective that, oh, we spent a lot of time explaining tech. That doesn't matter at all. I think what they were looking for is, can you give me a comparison on whether that's leading to a better conversion, whether it's going to result in a better GNS. So I think once we understood that, we changed our tactics on how we should, whom we should partner, and how do you get the data for that, and then sell that. So second one was more of an organic. The glitch is you couldn't go live. Why? Because you were not telling the data wasn't telling the story that they wanted to hear. And the first one obviously was a process of us getting something right. And at the same time, being customer backed saved us because we didn't experiment at the back of our customers.
Just to add on to that, when we do any of these transformations, failures are bound to happen, right? You're gonna hit the glitch. There's no running away from that. So one of the natural part of transformation is to embrace the failures. How would you naturally be prepared for it, right? And as a team, these failures, the example that Gayathri mentioned, made us to go back to the drawing board. We had to undo and redo a lot of stuff, right? And it took like 6 weeks for us to to figure out what has to be done and put it back. But that was a great learning for all of us. And the journey of these tough times, that's where the team comes together well, and it's a lot of emotions and a lot of you feel like at the end of 6 weeks you feel like, hey, I'm back, right? And then you have that sense of achievement and sense of the proud feeling. That's really worth it.
Yeah, and absolutely. I think early on we mentioned that every failure is not a failure, right? Every failure is nothing but a learning opportunity, and that's truly what you're saying. And the fact that the organization understands that, supports that, as long as you're within the bounds of, like you said, not stepping on real business or real customer pain. I think the fact that you have the freedom to work around and make those mistakes, come back, learning from them is admirable. And just to go back to what we were talking about earlier, in your own personal journeys here, right, Gayathri, you shared with us already that it's been 3 years you've been here. You've sort of embrace this culture of doing all the things that as the company empowers you to do as a product leader. If I were to ask you, Shiva, the same thing, why it has been great for you here, and of course what you look forward to. So yes, what's your personal journey? How long has it been, and how, if you could, what's the overarching sort of experience that you would take away?
It's been close to 8 years now for me at Intuit, and the last few years has been on the platform. And prior to that, I was in part of the QuickBooks product development. So it's good to see all facets of the development. Being on the product side, where you do the product development, come back to the platform where you build capabilities, for all of Intuit, which can leverage. So that's where I think truly Intuit has given me a lot of opportunities to work on all of these different aspects, do these tech transformations multiple times, be the front end of tech transformations and so on. So and I think I also feel that growth has been a natural part of all of these transformations, and I'm one example of that at Intuit. So this has been my longest tenure in any company. So I'm really happy for what Intuit has done for me, and all the work that I've been doing.
Well, that's amazing, and clearly, I mean, you've played obviously multiple roles in your tenure here, and I'm sure there's more to come for both of you. Gayathri and Shiva, I mean, thank you so much for sharing not just your personal experience and stories, but also this, the actual real life, I would say, experience of how the life at Intuit is for technologists like yourself. And of course, the amazing outcomes that you were able to drive with challenges that you pick up day in and day out. So clearly, it shows. I think personally, it shows a lot of not just freedom and amazing culture because of what Intuit is, able to do for you as individuals as part of the system, but also a massive amount of empowerment for you to build great products, to disrupt the ecosystem using technology, and of course serve these the 100 million customers that Intuit has today in so many ways, with even the smallest of changes, whether it's at the front door or deep inside the system. Things only seem to get better from here. So thank you so much for sharing this, and it was lovely talking to both of you. I look forward to having the chance to speak to you all again. Absolutely wonderful session. Thank you.
Thanks, Shiladitya. Our pleasure.
Thanks, Shiladitya. It was wonderful talking to you.
Hey, it's been another great week on the IVM Podcast Network. On a show about crypto, Rohan Joshi is joined by Ashish Singhal of CoinSwitch Kuber as they break down the blockchain. Marathi Kirkiton, our latest show, is all about Marathi culture, tradition, literature, cuisine, and more. To make your rainy day better, hear from Manik and Dr. Rajiv Deshmukh sharing their beautiful moments in this first episode. On Cyrus Says, Lakshmi joins us to talk about Splainer.in and the Press Decode podcast. On Press Decode, a discussion over sports and mental health, keeping in mind everything that's been going on recently. On Khelniti, check out the preview of the first test match. And on Shunya One, find out why Intuit India is amongst the best places to work. Do follow us on social media. We're IVM Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And remember, if you're enjoying this show or any other show for that matter, please do tell a friend. Word of mouth is the best way to spread the word about a podcast you love. And finally, we'd like to thank our sponsors this week: CED, Cred, Global Victoria, Bank of Baroda, Intuit India, and CoinSwitch Kuber.
Don't you think that if everyone around you is getting smart, you better be smarter? Hey there, I'm the traveling professor Siddharth Deshmukh, and I'm back with season 2 of my podcast to make you smarter. Smarter with Sid. What's this season's focus about? Well, it's about 10-minute nuggets that will make you stand out at work. It's time to go from smart to smarter. Tune in every Tuesday and Thursday and become smarter with Sid.
Given the unprecedented times our nation is going through, where positive is now a dreaded word, Smile India gets you delightful news from across the country about people and places that continue to spread the much-needed hope and positive vibes. I am Shifa Maitra, and you can hear Smile India with me every Thursday on the IVM app, website, or wherever you get your podcasts from. Oh, and did I tell you Smile India is available in both English and Hindi.